Hi, this is 365801 and this is my 2023 12 in 12 review video. So this is the second year I've done a 12 in 12 when I ask anyone on my social media platforms that I'm on if they can recommend any BL manga, male romance, manhwa, danme, anything, webcomics, books, doesn't matter, recommend something for me to read in 2023 last year, and I would read it, or I would at least try to. And I did last year, 2022, and I managed to read 12 things. So they weren't all from different people, but they were 12 things in the 12 months, and that was great. There was actually a couple more, so I did actually read, I think, 13, which was great. This year has been a little bit trickier. I'm going to go through it. But this is some of the things that were either recommended to me or they're by the same authors. There was a lot of digital things and some audiobooks as well. And I'll talk about who recommended all of these things as well. Did I manage it for 2023? Well, you just have to wait and see at the end of the video. Now we're going to start with some of the titles that were kind of passed on from the year before. I really wanted to read these in 2022. And I have copies of False Memories. They just weren't available to me. They were in my other collection. And I hadn't picked up Sayonara Game or anything from Minaduki Yu at that point in time. So at the end of the year, or I should say the beginning of 2023, these were the ones that I was like, hopefully I'll be able to read these as part of my 12 and 12 for 2023. And I did! Yay! So I did manage to read False Memories by Isaku Natsume. I think this was a buddy read. I think this was a buddy read with a couple of people, actually. Was it Bazaar? And it was during my 801, I think, readathon, as well as Sayonara Game and Change World. They were also buddy reads, I think, with Sarah. I think I did quite a few buddy reads during my 801 readathon, and it's a blur. That whole week is a blur. I read so much. But I did manage to read False Memories. This is a second chance romance for adults working on a project to make toys for a toy company in Japan and the company that's helping design them. And Sayonara Game is kind of also a second chance romance, but it's not really. It's gay man bisexual awakening, which I love. But it's two people who were on the same baseball team, senpai kohai relationship, and they reconnect when they're a little bit older, and they end up developing feelings, and it's lovely, and I love it. There is a lot more to the Minaduki Yu universe. There's the whole love nest second, and then is it Encore? Is that what it's called? And that's all either out or coming out. So I am very much behind, but I already was very much behind on the Minaduki Yu train, so I do need to catch up because I did really enjoy it. The artwork is lovely, and I enjoyed the story and the comedy and everything. False Memories was a reread for me, so I already knew that I liked it. It's Isaku Natsume, so of course. So yeah, I can say that I managed to get these two works, Sayonara Game and False Memories, done. And these were suggested by Shion over on Twitter, or do I need to call it X now? But yeah, Shion recommended them the previous year for 2022, but I didn't manage to get around to them, so I read them in 2023. So I'm very happy about that. Now, I also got to read another recommendation. This was by Vinny over on Instagram. Vinny Reads Books, and Vinny recommended In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan. I had no idea what this was when this was recommended to me. No idea. What a fool I was. I did have the Sarah Rees Brennan on my shelf. They were the Fence books, and I still haven't read them, and I really want to read them. Yeah, I kind of keep meaning to, so I put them on my TBR, and I didn't actually read them, but I did read this Sarah Rees Brennan book um, at the end of January. My January was not a great January. I kept reading things and nothing was hitting, and I was feeling like I was in a reading slump. I was still reading things, but I was just rereading things, and that's not really great. That really shows that I'm in a reading slump if I'm just rereading stuff. And in the end, I was like, oh well, I'll have a look to see if maybe one of my 12 and 12s will make me happy and give me the dopamine hit and make me fall in love. And this did. My God, I absolutely loved it. I was just sitting in my bedroom and I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. I'll go on Amazon and see how much it costs. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to pick up the physical. I'll just read this digital because the Kindle version's only like £2 something. It's great. That's fine. And I did start reading what I thought was a synopsis, but it's not. It's just the start of chapter 1. The start of chapter 1, the start of the book is just there instead of a synopsis. And I started reading it and I laughed out loud twice. And then I was really emotionally affected. And I thought, my God, this is just such a short passage and I'm already feeling all the feels. This is exactly what I need. And it was exactly what I needed. And I crawled into bed and I did not leave for a day and a half. I read it straight in one sitting. And it's a big chunky book. Like a super chunky book. And I did. I had all the feels. It was great. It was exactly what I needed. And for the longest time, this was sitting at the very top of my. This is the best book of the year. It took a long time for me to find something that was like, ooh, maybe it's got competition. Because I still think of this as an amazing, amazing recommendation. Vinny, thank you so much. It came out of nowhere. I did not know that I needed this in my life, and I then endeavoured to go out and get a physical copy, and I managed to pick up both a hardback and a paperback over the course of the year because I want to have a copy, but I also want to reread this and tab the shit out of it. I think I need to because I remember it all. I remember the feeling and I remember all the things, and I just think I'm gonna have to. And I never do this with books. I never write in them. I never underline. I never highlight. I never put tabs all over the place. But this book, I need to do a reread, and I need to just go through it really slowly, take it like a chapter at a time, and just be like, oh, I love this so much. This follows Elliot. I should probably have the synopsis. This follows Elliot, who is a boy from the other side of the wall. He's just in the normal world, and he gets taken to a field in the middle of nowhere, really, by his school group. And if you can see the wall, you can go over the wall. And no one else in the group can see the wall, but he can see the wall. And so he can get to go over it. And then if he goes over the wall, then he's in other lands. He's on the other side. And it's a completely different world. It's kind of fantasy medieval type. There's military school that he has to join, but he's like, I don't think so, because he's Elliot. He's like, is there another section? And there's a diplomatic corps type thing, and he's like, I'll join that one because he's incredibly smart and he's hardworking and he's wonderful and he is a little bisexual king. I love him. The trauma he's gone through in life, the issues he has, he strives always to make things better, to make his life better, and he is just the most wonderful character. I fell in love with Elliot, and any emotion that he went through, I went through too, and I literally did not leave my bed for a day and a half because I was so invested. And you go through his life when he goes over the wall at, I think it's age 13, and you keep following him for every year. So it's, instead of having a book for every year that they're in school, it's just following him throughout all of his years up until he would be almost an adult, that kind of time. And he falls in love and he breaks his heart and he does it again and again, and I absolutely love it. And the whole time you're like, no, stupid, he's over there. The one you're supposed to love. Oh, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. This was absolutely wonderful. I cannot gush about this more. It's fabulous. It's such a good book. Highly, highly, highly recommend In Other Lands. It's also got a sense of humor that just cuts through everything, and I laugh so much reading this. So much. It was perfect. And I sobbed in the middle. I mean, if you know, you know. I sobbed like a baby. I sobbed in the middle. Oh, it was so good. And there's so many great things about this book. Ah, such a great recommendation. Vinny, thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough. It was wonderful. If you haven't read it already, highly, highly recommend. Now, on to another physical one that I have in front of me that I can talk about that I have completed, and that is Blue Flag by Kaito. This is volume 1. This is Viz, and this was recommended by Buji Fujoshi. Thank you so much. I want to say thanks, but also it took me until December to read this because I kept meaning to buy it. For a few years, I've been meaning to check this out. And I only have volume 1 because in the end I was like, just get the volume 1 because you don't know if you're going to like it. And I don't want to spend like 50 quid on a series of 8 volumes if it's not something I'm going to love. And you know what, if I'm honest, I didn't want to like this because it has that sort of kind of cult position within manga as the same as Wotakoi or My Love Mix-Up. It kind of has the same sort of vibes of, oh my god, everyone loves this. Wow, everyone loves this. Men, women, shonen followers, shoujo followers, you know, people love it because of whatever it has. And I don't think everyone loved the ending though, and that's kind of the thing when it's an 8-volume series that's been out for some time. You kind of get spoiled for endings, and you kind of get spoiled for the plot twists. And so I don't, and the fact that this is only volume 1, it's not really a plot twist to say that there are some queer characters in this, which is why I would like this, which is why it's such a great recommendation. Because I kept going, yeah, I probably would like this. Everyone says I would like this. Everyone says you should read this. But part of me was like, I don't think it ends queer. I don't think it ends queer. And I don't know for sure, because I don't know. I've tried to avoid spoilers for the end, but I'm pretty sure, just by the way that everyone who knows me and reads similarly said, what a disappointing ending. I was like, I don't want to read something that I'm going to be like, oh my god, that was a terrible ending. So yeah, I did not spend the £50 getting the full 8 volumes. I just went out and got it for like 4 or 5. And that's a very reasonable price. But to get the rest of them, it's going to cost me probably the 50 quid. So I should probably just go out and get the rest of them because I want to read it now. Because I really enjoyed it and I knew I would, and I didn't want to. Yeah, because then it's another series I need to collect, and also it's not a proper BL. It's not. So why would I want to collect it? Because it actually is really good. The comedy aspects of it, the sweet aspects of it, the silliness, the high school setting, I really enjoyed it all. It was great. So yeah, I'm probably gonna have to pick up the rest of the series, and I don't wanna. Or I don't know. Is it available on one of the Viz apps? Should I? I'm not actually subscribed, or I don't have a subscription to either of the Viz apps. Is it on one of them? Because there's 2, and if it's on one of them, I should just get the subscription and read it digitally, and then I would feel better about it. And I'm quite happy to have the physicals, but not for a huge price, because they're all like £10 now, because it's been long enough that the prices just bang up to full price, and it's hard to get bargains. And I have been looking all year, because that's what I do. I look for bargains. And I can get volume 1 for cheap, but the rest of the series, not so much. Unless I'm wanting to buy them in German or Italian or French. And then it's super cheap. But yeah, so I'm really happy that I got this. So thanks, Buji Fujoshi. I really liked this first volume, and I do want to read the rest of the series. So yeah, it's kind of annoying, but also at the same time, it was really sweet. And I'm super invested. Obviously in the characters that you think I'm going to be invested in, but there's always a Taichi, isn't there? There's always a Taichi. All the good boys are always called Taichi, and I don't know why. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this one. This was recommended by Bizarre Individual. Um, and because it was recommended by Bizarre, I thought I really should give this a go. Even though I have to say, I have absolutely no desire to read this book. There's no reason I would need to, that I would want to. There's nothing that attracts me in any way to reading this book, other than the fact that, oh, it's quite short. That was the only saving grace. I did find a physical copy of this in a charity shop, so great, and it's a little dinky one, great. Um, and it was about halfway through the year, kind of in the summer, I think, that I found that, and I did get an audiobook copy out of my library in the middle of the year, and I tried to read it and I put it on, and it's a really short audiobook. It's really short, and yet I still was like, ugh, bored. Not gonna lie. I was desperately bored about it, and I was just like, oh no. Oh, I'll read it later on, maybe later on. But then I didn't have a great second half of the year, or I should say I didn't have a great September, October. It got much better after that. But when I was at work, some of my work colleagues who were much, much younger than me, we were all doing the whole like, we're super bored, we've got no one in, it's like we need to just keep going through to the end of this shift, and it's super boring. So we were having a conversation about like favorite books, favorite movies, favorite anything, just to try and have something to do. I had plenty of work to do, so I was doing my work. But they were having their chat because they had nothing to do. And one of them, who's only like 21, 22, 23, something like that, said that their favourite movie was The Great Gatsby, the Baz Luhrmann one. And I was really shocked. And I was like, The Great Gatsby? What? And then the other work colleague, who's even younger, basically like 18, 19, really young, was like, oh, I love that book. Did you read the book or did you just watch the movie? And the two of them were talking about The Great Gatsby, as you do. I was like, what? Am I in a parallel universe? And they were really raving about it. And they both, how much they loved it. And the younger one had read both the book and watched the movie. And the two of them were comparing, contrasting the different media and what it said, and what kind of messages it was about and things like that. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it another go. So in December, because this was the end of the year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it another go. So I put it properly on. I even logged it into my Goodreads. So I'm like, here, this is a bit of because I've read a few things this year that I've DNF'd that I haven't even put onto Goodreads, just because I'm like, I'm not putting this on, because then everyone knows I've DNF'd. Whereas The Great Gatsby was like, this is accountability. I'm reading it. So I did. I read it. And I did not watch the movie. Maybe I should have watched the movie, but I didn't watch the movie. And because I don't have any reason to. And now that I've read the book, I really don't have any reason to. Because I did not like this. I was so kind of apprehensive about reading it, because when I went on to Goodreads, all of your friends that you're connected with, their reviews are at the top. And so Dylan from Dynamic Dylan had read it and given it a 1-star rating, said this is the worst book ever, hated it, there was no likable characters, they're all unlikable, what was the point? And honestly, I'm like, yeah, same. I don't think I vehemently hate it, and I wouldn't give it a 1-star, but it's more like a 2.5. And I know this is like a great American novel, and it's known as the Great American Novel. So I can see the point of it, but that doesn't mean I enjoyed it. That doesn't mean that it's an enjoyable reading experience, and that doesn't mean that I feel like reading about self-indulgent, self-destructive, selfish characters who are all unlikable or have very few redeeming features or in any way is a fun time. And the thing is, I'm not American, so I don't need to read a great American novel. The great American novel that talks about things that resonate with Americans, but it doesn't necessarily resonate with me. But it doesn't mean I don't see the benefit of the book. Like things that I had to read at school, I I still have a soft spot for, even though they're terrible books, so I would never recommend them. Like Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies is horrific. I mean, what happened to Piggy is just you're haunted. And then The Color Purple, I had to read that one as well, and woof. And I know that the movie's coming out and it's going to be great, and I'm not going to watch it because woof. So yeah, I still like those books though. I have a soft spot for them because I had to read them when I was in school, and they resonated with me, or at least they were. I was forced to resonate with them because I had to analyze them so much, and um, but that doesn't mean I'm going to recommend them to anyone because they they're not the books that, I don't know, shaped me or made me who I am. But I think The Great Gatsby is this for Bazaar. So I appreciate that this is a book that you appreciate. But it's just not something that resonates with me in the same way. Purely because I think I'm too old for it. And I kind of don't like, I like my nonsense to be less destructive. I kind of like happy endings, and this didn't feel like a happy ending. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, because I didn't do the analysis that a lot of people would have read this book and done the analysis on. And I think you get a lot more out of a book when you do your critical analysis. Um, and for me, this is just like, no. Unless I was having to redo my English higher, uh, that's what you get at high school for your English. Your English language. Yeah, I'm glad I read it. It's like one of those, classics. I can be like, yeah, I read that. I read The Great Gatsby. And that's about it. It does mean that I've done my 12 and 12. Thank you, Bazaar, for the recommendation. I think I would prefer BL manga or family romance instead next time. Although, to be fair, this does have queer undertones, and I think that's also, like, I definitely picked up on that. Am I reading it wrong? There's definitely queer undertones there, right? Right? Maybe I got it wrong. Anyway, I read it, and it's on my 12 and 12. Now we're going to move on to some recommendations by Jen from Jen Does the Thing, who's on both Instagram and Twitter. And Jen recommended 4 things, and unfortunately, I did not get to read all of them. And in fact, I only actually read one, and it isn't A Lady for a Duke. Because I was like, I better get a book, I better get a copy. So halfway through the year, I picked up a copy of A Lady for a Duke, and I really want to read it. Like, I super, super really want to read it, but I didn't get around to reading it because in the summer I was like, this is going to be good, but I'm going to save it for a specific time in the year. And that specific time was September into October, and that's when I was ill twice. So I didn't get round to reading this, even though it was on my, that's when I'm going to read it. And I feel like I'm just going to have to read things when I want to read them. If they're on the TBR, just pick it up and read it. Because I really want to. And someone else who saw that I had this when I picked it up on Instagram was like, oh, let's do a buddy read. And I was like, yeah, let's do it later on in the year. Woo! And they didn't do that. So I hope that they actually did read the book whenever they wanted to, because I feel like I let everyone down by not reading this one, because and more than that, I let myself down. That's terrible, because I got a physical copy. I want to read it, and I did not, and I feel bad because everyone loves this. Everyone loves A Lady for a Duke. I also got recommended Little Mushroom, but I try as I might, I couldn't get a copy for a good price. It's all like £17 and stuff like that, and I'm just like, oh, that's a bit much for Little Mushroom. I could get hold of the. Sometimes you couldn't even, that was the thing, like you could get hold of the second one, but you couldn't get the first one. So it's a little bit trickier to get hold of a copy of Little Mushroom, a physical copy, because that's what I want. They're all a bit pricey, or they just don't have them. So like you can't get it on Amazon and stuff. The publishing house have not published a lot, so I'm gonna have to really go out my way this year to try and get hold of them. And the other one was Rowan Parish Best Laid Plans, and I did not get a copy of that one either. Although I was looking, I did look for copies, and I think it was only Blackwell's. And Blackwell's, since they've been taken over, are doing no bargains, not a single one. like Blackwell's used to do all the Sublime manga for like $6.99. You drop down the price and you get some really good bargains. They very rarely do that now since they've been taken over. Basically, Waterstones or whoever it was has been like, yeah, ha ha ha, yeah, no more bargains for you. So everyone who had Book Depository closed down and everyone's like migrating over to Blackwell's, and then Blackwell's got taken over, and it's like, yeah, where's the bargains? Even Wordery don't do that many bargains anymore. It's really hard to find when you're like a bargain hunter. But the one that I did get to read this year was The Last Sun by Katie Edwards. And I read the second book as well, The Hanged Man, and I read all the little extras in between, and I stalled at the third one. So I did read The Last Sun, which was what was recommended, and I read extra, so that should count. But I just haven't read the final book because, as I mentioned in a previous video, I'm afraid that someone will die, and I don't want the heartbreak. My glass heart will shatter because he's my favorite, and I'm very afraid, and I think I'm rightly so, because no one said anything, which is good, but I do think that that's what's going to happen. It would be fine if he could be, like wounded terribly. That would be okay. But I don't think he's going to make it to the end, and that's going to be devastating for me. And I did purchase the spin-off one as well. That's all the young ones they're going to go to school and stuff like that. So I am going to read it in 2023. It's in my you should read that this year. 2024, I should say. 2024. What year are we in? So I will read it. But yeah, I read The Last Sun. So of all the things that Jen recommended, that was the only thing, and it wasn't A Lady for a Duke. But it is also on my list of things I need to read in 2024. I should maybe make that actual list up. Yeah. And we're going to move on to some that I don't have up here. One is Midnight Men, and that was recommended by Poison Blowfish, who's all on Twitter as well. And I actually started collecting, because when you get free coins on Lesin, you can just use them in anything. So I started using them for Midnight Men. So I built up quite a few free chapters and then just binged what I had got in the middle of the year. And I did really enjoy it. Midnight Men's really fun. It's about a guy who kind of comes from organized crime family, but him and his younger brother leave after something happens to his father. He dies, I think. And then the kind of adopted son takes over, and there's definitely bad blood between the two of them, and they end up having debt, and so they're working really hard to try and pay off their debt. And he finds out that his younger brother is working in a women only club as a stripper and slash host, and he ends up joining in and helping to pay back debts doing that, and ends up meeting a man who works there. And it's got things that I don't usually like, which is like mafia, organized crime, yakuza type things, and sex work and stripping, and nighttime work, things like that. And of course there's a debt. There's always a debt. It's Korean webcomics. There's always someone with a debt. And I just really loved it. The art style as well is not something that I would have thought I would have liked, but it is one that I do resonate with. It kind of reminds me of, there's quite a few people it reminds me of, but like Bad Boys Happy Home, it kind of has that kind of vibe. But yeah, Midnight Men on Lesin, Poison Blowfish, that was a great recommendation. Thank you so much. And I managed to read some of it. It's on hiatus at the moment. I haven't got down to the end, so I'm still just using like free coins here and there, because I have had to purchase a couple of times from Lesin because I just used my coins up. And yeah, it's great. I'm gonna keep on reading it. It's really good. It's not finished, so that's fine. So I'm continuing on with Midnight Men. That was a great recommendation. The other recommendation from Poison Blowfish was Stigmata, which is by Hidebu, and this is on Futekia, and I made sure to read it just before my subscription ended in May. before I redid it in the October. And and this was an amazing series. So Stigmata on Futekia. If you do have a Futekia, you can read it. It's really good. It's about kind of like, it kind of gave me Night Beyond the Tri-Corner window vibes. It's about a guy who works with a cop and goes to scenes of crimes and kind of gets possessed by the recent dead type thing. It's like really like he can. It's really good. It's good. It's really good. And it did, I think, win something recently. But I really enjoyed it. It's long and it's kind of episodic, but yet there's an underlying story, which I kind of love that kind of setup. And yeah, just Stigmata was an amazing recommendation. One of my favorites this year. And it is good. It's really high quality manga, and the artwork is just stunning. And it has that sort of spooky vibe, as well as you just want to root for the people, and it feels painful. And yeah, it was great. Poison Blowfish, amazing recommendations. Thank you so much for those two. So, and that's kind of it, which is unfortunate because it means I didn't complete it. Spoiler alert, that's it. I only managed to get 8 done. There's quite a few other things that were recommended. Obviously, there was quite a few from Jen. And there was one by My KU Romance, which I really feel like I should have read. I have it on my Kindle Unlimited, so it wasn't like it was a chore or a difficult one. I've had it just sitting there. I started it, but I just haven't actually got very far into it, and that's Rock by Anita Sunday. And I want to read it because I keep hearing really good things about Anita Sunday. So yeah, Rock is one that was recommended to me that I will be pushing over into next year, as well as one that I will need to try and see if I can read. So that might be one. As well as A Lady for a Duke. That's definitely one I would like to be able to read next year as well. As well as finally finishing the KD Edwards series too. One that was recommended, or I should say 2 that were recommended by Katie, and I feel really bad about this because I have tried the recommendation, the main one called Bathhouse. I got an ebook copy from my library. I actually got it out in 2022, and then I tried again in 2023, and I tried several times because I kept thinking, this is Katie's recommendation. I really need to read this. But it's on ebook form, and so I was finding it really difficult to get into it, and I thought, you know what you need? You need a physical book. So I went out looking for the physical, and they're super expensive. Super expensive. And I was like, no, I can't spend £20 on a book. When I've got an ebook copy of it, maybe I should just get the audio. And I had to listen to the sample, and I was just like, no, this isn't hitting. And I just don't think a thriller is where my head and my heart is at the moment. So I kind of have started and DNF'd several times, Bathhouse, and I feel really guilty about that. I'm really sorry. And then I looked up Yes Daddy, which is the other recommendation that Katie gave me, and that's also like a thriller, and also it's a daddy story, and I'm like, I'm not really into daddies, but I mean, I'm not into daddies. But both of them, I was like, oh, I don't know. These are not gonna be ones that I feel joy reading, or that I'm gonna feel joy at the end of, probably. Maybe. I know I still want to read them, so I'm saying it's a soft DNF for both of them, because I did give Yes Daddy a little go as well, and I was like, oh, not really. Yeah. So I feel like there's certain types of books that I'm just not really sure about. But I at least gave a go. So does that count? It kind of counts, right? Because you get the 12 and you tried, but they just weren't for you. So I did give those 2 a go, but they are DNFs. The one that I kind of have started and I do want to finish, and I have sitting there in my Kindle, is Rock by Anita Sunday. So yeah, there's quite a few that I didn't manage to get. So in terms of what I actually read, there's 8 out of 12, which is not great. But it's not terrible. It's more than half. But yeah, there's a few that I will try and see if I can push over into the next year, but I would like some recommendations. So I already put out on social media, and I'll probably do it again when this video goes up, just as a call for recommendations, so I have more than 12, so that if I don't get through one, I can be like, yeah, I did this one and did this one instead. And a couple of people have already posted some recommendations to me, so I'm very happy about that, but I would love to have some more recommendations just in case things don't turn out. One of them that's been recommended that I'm going to put on my 12 and 12 for 2024 is All That's Left in the World by Eric J. Brown. Dylan has recommended this, and I already have a copy on my shelf. I made sure I bought one, and therefore it's like, well, you bought it, so you're interested, right? And I know it's dystopian, it's probably one that I'm not going to love as much as everyone else does, because I'm not really like, oh no, dystopian, oh. But everyone says how much they love this book. Everyone. I have not heard anyone say that they didn't enjoy this, and it's been so many people's favourites. And the other one that was recommended, that is a physical copy that I already have on my shelf that I bought, is Glitterland, the Spires story. So this is the first book in the Spires series. This is by Alexis Hall, and I managed to pick up a book this year as well. So these are two that I already own that have been recommended to me. So obviously I don't need to go out and do anything. I can just sit and read them. And I bought them because I was interested. So it's really good. I think For Real was the one that Dylan recommended 2 years ago. And that I was like, oh no, it's part of a series. But I've been assured that I could have just read it. It would have been fine. But me being me, I like to read things in order. Even if they're not actually in order, it makes me feel uncomfortable if I don't. So all of these Spires stories are being re-released. Glitterland is out already. The next one, which I think is like Waiting in the Flood, something like that. That's out in February this year, in 2024. And then the next one, the third book, is out in like June. So they're all coming out with new cover art, and I'll be able to pick them up. Hopefully I will actually like them, because as much as I like Alexis Hall, and Alexis Hall this year, 2023, I did read Alexis Hall, and it was amazing. I have read other Alexis Halls that were not as amazing, so I'm not sure which side of the Alexis Hall this one's gonna fall. So I'm intrigued. But yeah, I would love to have some recommendations for 2024. BL Manga, you can recommend something, because I might not have read it. I have a collection with plenty of things I haven't read, and new ones that I haven't read, and new ones that I don't own yet. So yes, recommend me BL Manga, male romance. I will give it a go. Yeah, any webcomics, anything like that. Absolutely. Give me some recommendations. Or even a book. You know what? I read The Great Gatsby. I feel good about myself. And something that I had never heard of in other lands was one of my absolute favourites of the year in 2023. So yeah, please do recommend me some books. If you know I already own it, even better. Because then it makes me read the stuff that I own, and I need to go through a list and be like, how many books do I own that I have not read yet? So yeah, this was not the most successful 12 and 12 in terms of completing it, but it was very successful in terms of what I read, because what I read I really, really liked. In Other Lands was absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed Blue Flag. The Great Gatsby was not my favourite, but I appreciate the fact that I've now read the classic. And Sayonara Game was exactly what everyone said it was going to be. I loved it. It was great. And a reread of False Memories that I already know. And then, of course, we've got Midnight Men and Stigmata, and they were amazing too. So, yeah. So the things that I read, of course, The Last Sun, which is devastating. I will. I will read. So everything that I did read, I really enjoyed. So thank you so much to everyone who recommended, and I will put forward the things that I didn't manage to get a copy of or get round to reading in 2023 into my next little pot of 12 and 12s for 2024, but I would still love it if anyone could give me some recommendations. What's your favorite thing? What's your favorite thing that you read this year, 2023? What's your top books? Let me know. Even just link your video or post to me, and I will have a look and see and choose some more great books, because I have really enjoyed taking part, and I love having a connection with other people as well. So thank you for watching this video to the end. Thank you to everyone who has previously recommended, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!